If you pull out the Dakari in the tabletop, I'm calling the police. That would be fun. I could see myself playing that one. Generic Control and the Dak Gooseby here, back with the part 2 to every 40k faction explained video by Bricky. I have been looking forward to this ever since I watched part 1 last week. Ever since I watched that video, this video's been popping to my suggested. I'm just like, oh, I want to watch you so bad. You can check my reaction to the part 1, which dropped last Tuesday. You can check my reaction to that. I'll leave it right up there. I'll also be linked down below in the description. I have read all your comments from that video. You all showed so much support for that video, so welcome to the channel. If you found that video, or if this is your second video, I have a lot of videos on my channel. It's technically not the first Warhammer video. I did the Imperium Man video, I think like 3 months ago, and I've done 2 Russian Badger videos that was playing Warhammer 40k video games, which are insane. This video is even longer, which I'm even more excited about, even though it is like 90 degrees right now when I'm recording. But I am so excited to learn more about Warhammer 40k. The figurines are so cool, and you can paint them. Also, that island, not the island, but that planet where the guard lasted longer than the planet did. Like, they did not fall, but the planet fell before the guard did. Absolutely insane, amongst so many other things I learned about Warhammer based on the comments. Like I said, I do read every single one of your comments, so leave some down below. Hope you're subscribed to some of those future videos. You can also become a patron for $3 a month and get you all my reaction videos a day early. Let me know what the next Warhammer 40k video related video should be, and what like figurines I should get, because I'm definitely interested in getting some of that and painting that and just making them my own. I think it'd be so cool. I love this so much, and hearing about all the lore and everything, and you are super excited as well. So thank you so much for being here. Let's go ahead and jump into every 40k faction explained part 2. All right,
this is part 2
I'm so excited.
Series of Warhammer races. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, we do the Imperium of Man.
Last week I've been
description, and I highly recommend you watch that to get context.
I have been waiting
episode.
to watch this for so long. A week, but it feels like it's been longer.
So after an entire episode of nothing but humans, we can now talk about chaos, which involves humans again.
Yeah, well, I read all your comments, like I always do.
I just felt someone grab my ass, like hard, Nick.
So also, everybody's like, ladies and gentlemen, who got him.
We discussed the warp, the immaterium, the hellish landscape.
I have talked about Warhammer 2, 5 different friends in the last week.
Realm of our existence. Now, in the warp, it's terrifying, horrible. There are demons everywhere. Things are crazy. All your minds and thoughts and emotions get projected there. It is both formless and empty. It is vast and tiny. It
vast and
obeys
tiny,
the laws
excuse
of
me?
time and physics, while simultaneously does absolutely nothing of the sort. It is a hodgepodge and a culmination.
So you can't predict it.
Unknowable, eldritch, horrifying shit. And there are 4
I'm interested.
gods that permeate in chaos and the warp. These are the 4 major chaos gods, and if we wish to learn about chaos, we need to learn about each and every single one of these chaos gods. First up, we have Khorne, and he
hey, people are talking about Khorne.
Classic Satan. He is all about anger, murder, fighting, blood, guts, death. You ever heard the term blood for the blood god?
Skulls for the skull throne?
That's Khorne. The whole idea is that he is all about the fury and strength of battle. He doesn't care where blood comes from, so long as blood is flowing.
Blood for the blood god.
He wants to fight and murder and carnage and slaughter and death, 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 death. That is Khorne. Very simple to understand. Next up, we have Tzeentch, and Tzeentch is the god of change. However, the god of change, it's permeates in so many different other ways. He's the most eldritch of all the demon gods. He has this weird way to always be plucking at the strings of the universe. He's always conniving and scheming and doing his best to cause as much little bullshit as he can. Tzeentch is unknowable. Everything that makes sense, he will and won't do. Every future and setting and every type of destiny or fate is all foretold and also changeable. It is set in stone while also completely random. He knows what everything is going to happen, and also that none of it's going to happen. You would ask Tzeentch a question.
Schrodinger's demon.
Leads to 3 more questions, and those questions lead to the heat death of the universe, which asks 4 answers to those questions, and then he thinks to himself, what are questions even really?
Yeah,
and are you even asking the questions, or are you simply giving paths to answers and other horse shit? Tzeentch is just, I'm gonna fuck with stuff. He is yes and he is no. He is the understanding and he is complexity. He is unknowable. And that's what the God of Change is about. Very bizarre. And he likes birds a lot. I don't know why. Next up, we got Papa Nurgle. Papa Nurgle, he loves you for who you are. Probably not. He will murder you just the same. But Papa Nurgle is about rot, pestilence, death, and decay.
Aren't they all about death?
The end of everything. Him and Tzeentch do not like each other very much because where Tzeentch represents change and adjustment, Nurgle represents stagnation and death. He is all about miasma and pestilence and large
you say the asthma?
And pus and organs.
That's gross.
And people just
Why do you like this?
Sloth.
You're
he
weird.
is the idea that everything will rot and decay and die. Nothing
Not
is
the machine
certain
people.
besides decay and death. All of us will end up the same way, and broken down through just sheer never-ending decomposition. So the joke that Nurgle always loves you is generally because of that, because we all end up the same. We all rot, and we all die.
But what if I replace my body with robot parts?
And he's got a general theme of course, pestilence and different kinds of diseases and sickness.
So can you like play as
Nurgle? He's pretty easy to understand as well.
I guess they're not factions, really.
He chonk. Finally, we have the youngest of the Chaos Gods, and that is
Why
also known as the Prince of Pleasure or the God of Unspeakable Excess.
Why
Slaanesh
is there
is generally referred to with sex, but it's not only sex. It's just that's a good avenue if you want to make stuff. So next is just the idea of the senses.
Oh my God! It was her belly button.
To not just 11, but
really
more like 17. So we'll discuss Slaanesh a little bit more when we talk about the Eldar because they done fucked up. But
why? What have they done?
Or whatever is mainly about just the excess of emotions, and therefore sex is generally a large
what is
part
on
of
that
it.
tongue?
However, it's mostly pain and torture. Lots of pain, torture, but sometimes sexually related or drug related. Lots of drugs.
Drug related.
Lots of drugs.
Wait, there's drugs in Warhammer? Why am I not surprised, actually?
Extremes in happiness.
What are the drugs like? 40,000 years.
Extremes in pain and sadism and masochism. And of course, that goes along with the sex part of it as well. It's generally referred to with sex because of the color scheme, very purple, lots of exposed genitalia. A lot of their models have like exposed nipples and stuff. And that is generally the theme you go for from a physical side, but it really embodies everything. Mainly pain
the fan service
and also the
god?
Excessive amounts of emotion. So when it comes down to it, you'll find a lot of them have things like spikes or whips or any kind of BDSM style gear because it is unspeakable excess, the Prince of Pleasure, everything in excess to the point where it is just sheer frightening. That is Slaanesh in a nutshell. A little bit bizarre and a little hard to describe sometimes, but as we talk
not
more
the only
about
thing that's hard,
Eldar
apparently.
later in this video, you'll understand it far, far better and far more than you'd want to. Now you might be thinking, why would anyone ever want to join Chaos? They all look horrifying, screwed up.
Well, everything in Warhammer sucks.
Right?
Not
well,
like the world. Warhammer's awesome. I love Warhammer.
Into the
I mean, if you live in there.
So you can be easily swayed by chaos demons when they get into your head, especially if you're a psyker. Sometimes regiments of the less mentally strong people, whether they be civilians or say low-level guardsmen or conscripts, can be easily swayed by this and become chaos cultists and stuff, and they serve their dark gods and whatever god they personally refer. However, and this might seem strange,
who does the
chaos
recruiting
in their own right isn't necessarily evil. See, the warp is every manifestation of emotion and being, every soul, everything of existence. This includes all the good things. All the different chaos gods have another side to their coin. Khorne might be death, murder, slaughter, slaughter,
what does he
but he's also got this weird sense of survival of the fittest, trial by combat, and honor. Khorne will never lie to you. Khorne will never stab you in the back. Khorne isn't about conniving and scheming.
He's about strength and the best.
Up, mano, you versus me, get in the ring, we're gonna murder each other hard right now. It may not be a good thing at the end of the day, but it is that other side of the coin. Him and Tzeentch generally don't get along because Tzeentch is that conniving schemer.
It seems like nobody likes Tzeentch.
It's also about the idea of hope. Where there is change for your predicament. There is change for your problem. The hope of the galaxy, the ability to bend the world to your will, the idea that your fate is not set in stone, but in reality that you control your own destiny and can control it whenever you want, the changer of ways. That is Tzeentch. And of course, Tzeentch and Nurgle hate each other because while Nurgle does represent stagnation, death, and decay,
which is the opposite
he also
of change.
represents finality. An ending. The fact that you can be mentally at peace knowing that you will end and how you will end. Fear of the unknown, fear of change is not present with Nurgle. With Nurgle, everything will rot and die, and that provides that finality, that ability that this is over. We are all the same, and we will all end the same. We know the meaning of life. The meaning of life is to live and die and rot. And with that, it brings
that makes sense.
Mind.
Yeah.
Slaanesh is a lot more simple. While they are the excess of emotion, they are also the representation of emotion. Slaanesh embodies happiness. Slaanesh embodies excitement and joy and pleasure, not only in the sense of the physical, you know, bam style of pleasure, but also everything else like food and drink,
like
and
this, like gluttony,
on your cheek and sunlight, the feeling, emotion and feeling. All of that is also represented with Slaanesh. So you have to ask, why are they
which one's the most popular?
Super evil,
who has the biggest army
and spikes on everything and want to murder everybody?
Like, who gets the most recruits?
I don't really got an answer for you on that one. My assumption is that because mentally humans may think worse thoughts even if we don't act on them, and therefore they're projected in the warp more. That one's a little bit weird. I don't know. This is me spitballing right now, but I don't know. You need a super bad guy. You already got the Imperium of Man. You need somebody to be a little bit worse than them.
Yeah.
So you got demons. Honestly, who cares? I just want to buy like a
Also, the Emperor had a text-to-speech device is something
so combining all
I know
this
about now.
together,
Dude, the figures
tabletop,
are so cool.
Chaos demons are generally very melee-based. They run in, go really hard. You have lots of summoning,
numbers,
and conjuring, tons of spells. Generally a little bit frail, but they have special saves to make them a little bit stronger. You've got giant demons and smaller demons. You got hordes of little boys and tons of big guys. Demons are as they seem. Demons. Nurgle is slow. Khorne is super scary in melee. You've got Tzeentch, who are far more into psychers and spellcasting, and then Slaanesh, who is all melee, really, really, really fast but squishy, but in lots of hordes of tons of melee and,
like
pain
speed
damage, of course. So overall, the demons are a huge part of 40k and a massive threat to almost every.
So that's only 4 factions,
with the exception of a couple. However, the big part about demons is also transferred into the other 9 Primarchs we didn't talk about, which are the Chaos Space Marines.
Oh, Chaos Astartes. That is Astartes, right?
So Horus and all of his boys, all of them in the Primarchs.
Also, the whole 20 sons, actually 18.
And
the 2 were the people playing the tabletop, which is crazy. That's such a cool feature.
Things just like the Adeptus Astartes, the Angels of Death, the regular Space Marines. Chaos Space Marines aren't a whole lot different than the regular Space Marines. They have the same armor, generally the same training and toughness. They just specialize in different kinds of things. And also a lot of the Primarchs have ascended into greater is it greater demons?
Post-heresy.
Demon Primarchs at this point. Gigantic, horrifying man-demon hybrids that are pretty awesome, if I'm going to be honest. They look really, really cool. But them and their associated legions that they are a part of are all kind of going out there and causing a large ruckus for everyone else. Considering the raw strength and firepower of a legion of Space Marines, imagine that entire legion just converting to chaos and immediately fighting you. It's generally pretty horrifying. There's a lot of them, so I gotta write them down. But
what do you mean?
You've got the Emperor's Children with Primarch Fulgrim, loyal to Slaanesh. These people, they are some messed up people. They're just sensory overload, tons of drugs, tons of torture. And I think Fulgrim is a demon Primarch right now. And
what do you mean right now?
I am terrified to see what that man looks like, at least on the tabletop, because the Emperor's Children are not good people. You've got the Iron Warriors, which are kind of like opposite of the Imperial Fists, with Primarch Perturabo, I believe is his name. They're Chaos Undivided. They just kind of serve chaos in a general aspect instead of choosing one of the 4. But the Iron Warriors are big on the siege and fortification, and they're basically entirely against the Imperial Fists and a major rival. Perturabo, I believe, is also still alive, and I'm also very interested to see what he looks like, because Demon Primarchs are badass. You've got the Night Lords with Primarch Conrad Kurz. Conrad Kurz is dead, which is good because he's a sick fuck. But the Night Lords are generally about terrorizing people and terrorism. They're generally about fear, and rightly so. You've got the World Eaters with Primarch Angron, still alive, also excited to see. Angron.
Why is he saying excited to see? Like, are they just added or something?
Angron is the angriest son of a bitch you will ever know.
Made too angry to die.
Removed parts of his brain that didn't make him angry, so he could be angrier. Angron. Fucker's mad.
I think he's a little angry.
Primarch Mortarion. They actually have their own special codex and their own major army on the tabletop. Mortarion himself is actually one of the models. And look at him. look at him. It's so cool looking. Of course,
the good color
based,
palette,
obviously. So very slow but very tanky. You've got the Word Bearers with Primarch Lorgar.
Is that book on a stick?
I believe, still alive. I don't know what's up with him at the current moment, but the Word Bearers are generally the people who caused all the major problems in the beginning. At least I blame them for it. They're little assholes. You got the Black Legion.
Apparently StarCraft was supposed to be Warhammer. Shout out to Inifis for telling me that.
Nerd. You've got the Alpha Legion with Primarch Alfarius Omegon. Chaos, I think. And then finally, you've got the Thousand Sons with Primarch Magnus the Nerd.
The Nerd.
Also have their own book just with the Death Guard. Magnus is also a tabletop model. He looks super cool, as you can tell. And they're all super heavily Psyker and kind of Egyptian themed. They look pretty neat. But overall, with all of these Chaos Space Marine factions, you can play as a lot of different ones, but the main ones that you can really work at are standard Space Marines, Chaos Space Marines, as well as the Death Guard and Thousand Sons, as they are the most fleshed out, especially on the tabletop at least. See this right here? This is a really good way to describe the Chaos Space Marines. What the thick-headed fools with their broken corpse of an emperor fail to understand is that not only can they never defeat us, but they cannot hide or flee or shield themselves from the triumph of chaos. They are finite and we are unbound, undivided. They must not err, or they shall fall to heresy. All who fall join our cause. Every imperial fool who dares to open his eyes is a willing recruit. They strive merely to hold back our fury and might, and it consumes them. Thus, you can see chaos is inevitable. We lurk not only beyond their grasp and at their gates, we lurk within the darkness of their souls, on the tip of their tongues, in their tortured dreams. We are them,
how do you torture dreams?
From the shackles of ignorance. We are them,
the nightmare?
Grown strong, evolved. We are them, but so much more. As hardcore as that quote is, the saddest part is they're mostly right. Chaos is basically unkillable. You could probably get rid of Space Marines, a decent amount, the Chaos Space Marines that is, but every soul that dies goes
back to the warp.
Every Chaos soul will end up back in the warp.
And then it just come back.
Depending on how hard you killed them, they will come back at some point. Every demon you banish will return at some point.
And their numbers are just growing.
Is unstoppable. The warp is unending. And while maybe there is at some point some way to stop them somehow,
is there?
The resources to do so, the requirements to do so, are so far beyond the reaches of man and the other races at the current moment that really it's just an unstoppable force that just keeps on coming and is just barely being slowed. Chaos is by far the biggest threat. They are without number. Their legions are everywhere.
How do you fight demons, dude?
Yeah, they're pretty scary. So, I promise, we're done with humans now. Let's talk about some Xenos.
The Xenos?
So let's talk about the Eldar, or also known as the
Prime.
Eldari, which are a super hyper-specialized and very technologically advanced race of, well, elf people. They were as well
so they're the elves of the world.
responsible for the creation of Slaanesh, the newest demon god. How'd they do that?
I don't know. How do you create a god?
Debauchery on a world-ending scale. So back in the day, it was just Khorne, Tzeentch, and Nurgle. And the Eldar are very, very ancient. Millions of years. These Eldar, however, have a bit of a sensory problem. You know, every kind of pain or feeling that you have is a little bit amplified compared to the normal.
However, so they feel
Eldar,
too much.
As their race advanced so excessively, and they became so self-reliant, and everything became so easy, there was no requirement for food production anymore. There was no shortages. Everything was basically done. Everyone was so
They created God as a side quest.
Comfort breeded this weird sedation. And that sedation breeded the requirement for more and more debauchery.
Debauchery!
Debauchery! Debauchery!
When everything you have can be so easily acquired, you will end up down this road of pure debauchery. All of the senses the Eldar had that were so powerful
are now
things
nothing.
Like feeling, happiness, sadness, and just evil and good, all needed to be satisfied and satiated. And the desire to
they literally kind of came out of touch.
And more with worse and worse debauchery. It started off with things like sex and drugs becoming so much more rampant because these are the first things you generally turn to when requirements for living are so easily accessible. It would get to the point that made Sander Cohen in Bioshock.
Oh my god,
insane.
I recently played through Bioshock.
Right, this is the kind
I guess it was like
of
a year ago.
it led to.
I streamed it.
It was constantly
gaming channel.
satisfying and satiating these sexual and sadistic or masochistic fantasies that only elevated and elevated. And this was species-wide. People started going down darker, more depraved, and more violent paths as time went on. However, some people didn't entirely take to that. Some of the Eldar were looking at this depraved
mommy and daddy issues
that they had become and said, no thanks for me, dog, I'm good. And they bailed. These are the Craft World Eldar. They left on these giant continent-sized starships called Craft Worlds. They believed in learning the old ways of the Eldar and pushing away from this depravity and debauchery and going back to their main roots. And so they would segment themselves on these giant Craft Worlds far in the outer reaches of space. They even had this thing called the Webway. Remember what we mentioned about warp travel with the Imperium?
Yeah.
The Eldar had something way safer called a Webway. And the Eldar Webway is actually like a pocket dimension kind of thing.
And there's demons?
And in that pocket dimension, there were also more horrible, depraved groups and clans that would spend their time in there. And if you imagine the debauchery was bad already, these were debauchery X10. So all of this
debauchery realms.
And it continued and it bloated until Slaanesh just burst forth. All that emotion, all that mental, thought processes, I suppose, all of this in such a condensed space. Don't forget, this is all being shot, all their souls as well, into the warp. All of this depravity right into the warp. So what happened? Boom. Slaanesh
a god was created,
birthed, and killed off 90% of the entire Eldar population. Untold trillions had their souls ripped from their bodies and their actual fleshy bodies devoured by Slaanesh demons. The entirety of the Eldar race was eaten alive and their souls consumed to the Prince of Pleasure. All of them,
like in an instant,
got fucked up. It was so bad that it literally ripped a warp hole into the fabric of the Materium called the Eye of Terror. That's
a good name for it.
It's like quasi-horrifying gateway portal from the Materium and the Immaterium right next to Cadia.
Cadia? They fought longer than the planet. The planet broke before they did.
By the Eldar.
That's so crazy to hear about.
The entire population, except for a couple. Those in the Craft Worlds were actually not affected by this as they were so far in the reaches of the galaxy. That crazy crack, that birth of Slaanesh only affected the ones in the center. So these Craft World Eldar were able to escape, but Slaanesh got their sights on them. Every time an Eldar will die, their soul doesn't just pass into the warp naturally. It goes straight to Slaanesh, Craft World or not. What about those people in the Webway? Well, imagine that giant birth happening, but they were only able to just barely get a grasp onto you. Slaanesh was just barely able to hold on.
The triple sensors is so funny.
The Dark Eldar, or also known as the Drukhari. The Eldar population right now is so massively small. It is minuscule compared to any of the other most of the other populations in the universe. The Eldar are consistently having issues trying to get their population up because as their souls are constantly being hungered from Slaanesh, they realize their entire species is doomed. And they understand it very well.
That's
Since the
terrifying.
time of the fall, our race has been haunted by what we, in our reckless pursuit of hedonistic indulgence,
I've never seen that word before.
Though our dreams once overturned worlds and quenched suns, we are now but fitful shadows clinging to the edge of existence. All
I wonder
the
how
stars
many of them are
in the
left.
sky cannot
Probably,
blot out the hateful glare of the red moon's
a lot of them probably
the birthing place of the great enemy pulses with all the malice of a demon that is dreaming, casting its shadow over all we have ever done and all we ever shall. Every twisted strand of fate and casting of the runes leads me to this time, to this place, and it is clear that the final battle awaits me at the ancient Crone worlds, a conflict the likes of which has not been seen since the Monkai warred amongst themselves and their corpse of a seer fell to his traitorous son. is coming, and all my steps lead towards it, no matter that I walk other paths. I see the stars stained red with the blood of the Monkai, and though their wars do not concern me, I would gladly let them destroy one another. I know that to avoid this fight is to condemn my race to inevitable doom, and though all I see is darkness, I know that I will not flinch from my destiny. And now let's talk about cute plastic models.
Bro, I'm straight up not having a good time.
Craft World Eldar.
The first playable race we have for the Eldar are the Craft World Eldar and living in those Craft World
obviously.
I mentioned earlier.
Which
and
are
each
sick
of them have
looking.
their
Probably
own
not the
kind
best
of
for
craft world,
transportation,
like a Space Marine Legion. Each Craft World is in itself its own special kind of group. And the Eldar themselves are very fast and rely a lot on trickery. They are squishy, a bit weak, but they're very in tune as psychers. Tons of psychers
elves
across the entire Eldar population, and their weaponry and abilities are fast and extremely hard-hitting, but of course rather fragile. Understanding an Eldar's brain is an exercise in futility. They are all over the place in confusion and trickery on a whole galactic scale. They fight weird, they think weirder,
fight weird.
And Eldar, in their own right, really rely on this to keep their species alive. They need to think about deception and the strangeness of what they do if they truly want to not be immediately murdered and slaughtered wholesale thanks to their entirely small population. However, I must say that it seems like their population is getting slightly better. These craft worlds hold millions upon millions of people. And as they continually, reproduce and
their
their
content
craft worlds
size
expand, losing a few people in battle, while hurts a lot, they aren't really losing what's extremely precious to them. It's not like every single death means the death of their species. It seems like they're kind of on the upturn a little bit. They're still a doomed race being sucked into Slaanesh every time someone dies.
Well, I mean, does it really matter? It's not like you can get that back anyway.
Eldar are fast, cunning, and what they don't make up for in tankiness, they make up for in extremely advanced weaponry. They also call humans Monkai, which is something I mentioned earlier.
Monkey?
That is a derogatory slur for humans in the Warhammer world. Why is it called Monkai? Well, it's because you can't, in your game, call people monkeys.
Yeah.
On the tabletop, exactly what I said. Not very tanky.
That color scheme,
generally pretty squishy. Hit like trucks.
Like trucks.
Mach 5. Fast, hit hard, die fast.
You've watched my death battle reactions, you know I love fast characters.
We bring only death and leave only carry on. It is a message even a human can understand.
Wow.
Eldar. So, Drukhari. Let's talk about the Dark Eldar.
Oh,
today's episode of How Fucked Up Is Fucked Up. That's fucked up.
It is.
So those people I mentioned in the Webway, in the super deranged cults and the depraved people of the Eldar, in the Webway, they didn't quite get a hold onto them. Slaanesh has them, but it has them on by the pinky finger. And they're slowly being consumed by Slaanesh, but they found out they can stave her off by doing Slaanesh things. The Dark Eldar are by far the worst, most horrifying, disgusting, depraved, and brutal race in all of Warhammer 40k. These are entirely people whose full purpose to save their species from extinction, to go into planets, raid them, and take as many slaves as they possibly can to torture them for 1, 5, 10, 20, a million years, because that torture will keep them from dying. They look very BDSM style too. They definitely have a lot more spiky bits, and they have a lot more of that kind of leathery black look to them. But let's say you are an upstanding Imperial citizen, living life on a regular planet. You get invaded by the Necrons. The Necrons will shoot you with a deatomizer, and you will be destroyed in a millisecond, and that's it. Not the worst way to go. You are invaded by Chaos Marines or something. You take a bolter shot to the head or a chain sword across your stomach, and
that'll
you
hurt a little
cut
bit.
In half. Painful, but not the worst. The Orcs arrive. They beat you to death. Hurts,
not the best.
But, whatever. Tyranids, they eat you alive. Rough.
Not the worst.
The Dark Eldar. This is going to get a little graphic. I apologize.
Oh, God.
You pray you die. You don't. You are instead taken as a human slave. Your life will be endless work and agony.
Endless work?
24/7. They will make sure you cannot die, as your pain satisfies them. They will hook you up to all manner of torture devices. They will inject pain-based like stimuli drugs directly into your nervous system. They will slowly run razor blades across your skin. They will fillet you and just pull out your teeth and your fingernails one by one. They will remove your appendages and your skin and wait for it to grow back so they can do it again. They will murder and torture and use the R word, it rhymes with grape,
the demonetization
in front of you, and do the exact same thing to them. You yourself will also be rhymes with grape anywhere and everywhere possible, and this will occur for 20 years until you are no longer satisfying to them. And then you will be contorted, crushed, and twisted into some form of trophy, a fleshy trophy, or a ring, or a couch, or a TV
I just bought a couch this week.
or perhaps a wonderful hat, while you are, of course, still alive.
I don't think it's made out of people.
And you will become a moaning, fleshy trophy.
How do you not die?
For eternity.
How do you not die?
That is what happens when you are taken by the Dark Eldar.
Don't get taken.
They are the most
Don't get taken by them.
Most horrifying race in all of 40k. They look the part, and they do it so they all don't die. They are literally forced to do this, because if they don't, Slaanesh's grip will get harder, and they will have their souls pulled away. So long as they keep doing this, Slaanesh is like, "You're doing good, man.
Yeah, this is what I wanted.
Solid. You keep that shit up, you elf-eared bastards." That's the Dark Eldar. That's the Drukhari.
Drukhari, you're a whole lot of nope.
On the tabletop, they're actually kind of like Eldar, but more extreme. They are even.
If you pull out the Drukhari in the tabletop, I'm calling the police.
Even harder. Fast attacks, skirmishers, really quick, speedy, like get around them, do a lot of damage, get away kind of stuff. That's most of the Dark Eldar. Look up the definition of grim dark in a dictionary. You'll find a picture of the Dark Eldar. And Sev from Public Commando. A quote
that
from,
looks like Star Wars.
Mr. Vecht.
Never seen it.
We are the lords of despair, masters of terror. Dread and agony are our meat and wine.
I'll believe it.
They are plentiful indeed.
I'll believe it.
Dark Eldar. Let's talk about the Harlequins.
Oh, Harlequins.
Clowns.
What's the matter, Andy? Don't you want to have some fun?
The Harlequins are a bizarre race of Eldar. They're demonic clown
Volkswagens that are Harlequins.
They're like a weird mix of Sander Cohen from Bioshock
there we go with him again.
Jin from League of Legends, but in a more clown theme. They're artists of death and perfecters of their craft. They do not belong to Craft Worlds or any of the weird Drukhari people. They guard something called the Black Library, which is this giant tome of never-ending knowledge deep in the heart of the Eldar webway.
And they have this
also
in the
guarded by
clowns.
their god named Kegorok, I believe is how you pronounce his name. He is the laughing god, but it's the Eldar's laughing god? And these are the Harlequins, the Harlequin clowns. These are Eldar clowns, okay? So imagine the things that an Eldar, these depraved individuals, would find funny. And this is the god of that.
Oh.
It's a horror clown. These are gods of horror for us normal people. For them, they're like,
it's fun. It's funny.
It's so funny. They're all dying horribly.
They're all getting skinned alive. This is the best funny thing I've ever seen.
Difficult to describe. They've escaped the ruinous powers of Slaanesh somehow.
Somehow.
But their main thing is guarding that Black Library. And the Harlequins just... They're demon clown performers. They're barely any models on the tabletop. They're good in melee. They're demon clowns.
Why are there hardly any models of them?
I'm not sure. I got a quote. It is too easy for an Eldar to embrace the obscene virtues of chaos, for Slaanesh is nothing more than a manifestation of the Eldar mind in its most wild and unconstrained form. Human morality is meaningless to the Eldar, and to the dark side of the Eldar mind, all life is to be expended at a whim. Cruelty and generosity are but the impulse of a moment. Beauty and sensuality are virtues that can be expressed in bloodshed just as easily as in song.
I don't know about that.
To an unfettered Eldar mind, there is neither sanity nor madness, but merely a wave of perfect existence fulfilled by its own savage momentum. They're very strange. Harlequins, Drukhari, Eldar, they are an anomaly that make humans seem completely easy to understand in comparison. They range from rekindling their civilization to horrifying murder and also clowns. They're all over the place, but honestly, they represent quite well and are rather interesting, especially with the whole Slaanesh murdering everyone bit. So
also the library thing. It's pretty cool.
Now, bugs.
Mom, they following me, Mom. They following me.
Who following you?
The bugs.
The bugs.
The bugs. Okay, now these were in the Heavy Flamer Heresy video by Russian Badger.
Crazy Eldar shenanigans. Let's talk the Tyranids. They're bugs.
They're like gene stealers
Zerg.
or something.
Hell yeah, they look like Zerg. You want to know why they look like Zerg? Because they were actually supposed to be what Zerg were. Apparently StarCraft was supposed to be a 40k game in the beginning, hence why they look so much like Eldar, Zerg.
I literally mentioned that.
The Imperium of Man. Like, kind of Space Marine-y.
Yeah.
Those Marines, huh?
And if it's literally sending me a screenshot, I was like, wow, that looks just like it.
I don't know. You really fucked up on that one, Games Workshop, didn't ya? Tyranids are a giant infestation.
And if it's one of my patrons, a good buddy of mine.
Unfathomable proportions. These are giant, extremely bio-advanced hive mind organisms that are basically
weak to doors,
absorbing as much biomass as they possibly can to evolve and mutate to be extremely potent and powerful and kill and eat anything in their path. They are probably the least evil faction in all of 40k because all they want to do is eat shit. They want to nom nom the entire galaxy. They hangry and we food. Also, this Tyranid hive mind has
not food. Why may you out of
warp.
food?
In fact, Tyranids in their own right have a massive presence in the warp. They have a thing called the shadow in the warp specifically, where when they are coming in to invade a planet, they have this weird ability to kind of cut off the warp on all the psychers on that planet. And how you get help across the stars? Well, you need the warp because you're there for interstellar travel. So with people unable to call for help,
nobody can get to them.
These are just easy pickings. And an entire giant Tyranid hive fleet comes out of orbit
basically and eats the planet.
Massacre,
they're like locusts.
Absorbing all that biomass and turning them and all of their other Tyranids into even more advanced monsters. They come in so many varieties too, all based on what is important. Tiny little ripper swarms for scouting and having little dudes eat people up.
Little dudes eat people up.
Termagants, and gene stealers, all the way to the Hive Guard and the Exocrines and the Swarm Lord, to Hive Tyrants and their giant battle fleets, and even something as crazy as the Hierophant Bio Titan.
That's huge.
The Tyranids come in all forms and sizes depending on what they require. They are extremely good at anti-biological weaponry. There is no way you can plague them or blight them. They have extremely strong armor, carapaces and such.
They have the genetics. Are genetic lottery.
Perfect organisms and are pretty spooky when it comes down to how they handle all of their genetic material. Keep feeding them, they'll keep evolving. They keep creating new horrifying organisms to spread across the galaxy.
Oh, that shotgun's gonna help.
The most terrifying part of the Tyranids is we might be surrounded. There have been around 6 or 7 Tyranid hive fleets. Behemoth, Kronos, all these different kinds of hive fleets. And they've all arrived in the galaxy from different points. Different sections of the Milky Way galaxy have had different Tyranids come through. And that is horrifying. Because as far as we know,
we're all that's left.
We could just be surrounded.
Yeah, the rest of the universe could just be
Tyranids. The only reason you may not hear a whole lot about Tyranids is because it's a little bit hard to have a bunch of story off of one hive mind genocidal monsters. All these giant bugs swarming.
Is there like a leader?
Everybody and evolving. Oh, I mean, as cool as there are, there's some cool characters. The Swarm Lord, Old One Eye. You can't really have a whole bunch of major character-based stories around them. As awesome as they are, they're simple. They want to eat you. They want to eat you and absorb your biomass. They are simple bugs. If you want something a little more complex, talk gene stealer cults.
I can have all the blood I want, I get around faster than walking, and wherever I need a seat, I can just sit on my balls.
Gene stealer cults are a special brand of Tyranid that can slowly infect themselves into different kinds of society.
Because Badger was talking about gene stealers, I remember that.
They can rise up to where they all pray and believe in these regular humans, pray and believe into their Tyranid hive mind gods. And these brood lords and I think they're called patriarchs all can turn an entire world all based into gene stealers, and these are called gene stealer cults. An entire hive world of the Imperium can be turned into nothing but servants to the Tyranid masters just by infecting them and screwing with their genetic code a little bit. They also have this cool like Mad Max look, which is really neat. They are definitely one of the bigger threats to the Imperium besides Chaos. I keep saying biggest threat to the Imperium.
Everything's a big threat.
Though, because you, dingus, stepped on a bug in middle school.
Asshole.
There is a cancer eating at the Imperium.
Yep,
With
that would be
each decade, it advances deeper,
bugs.
leaving drained, dead worlds in its wake. This horror,
so they just
this
exterminate a planet?
Has thought and purpose that functions on an unimaginable galactic scale. And all we can do is to try to stop the swarms of bioengineered monsters it unleashes upon us by instinct. We have given the horror a name to salvage our fears. We call it the Tyranid race. But if it is aware of us, it must know us as nothing but prey. Tyranids. They're cool.
Cool. Bugs.
But are they as cool as the orcs?
Every screen's gone red. That means I'm super fast.
People said orcs might be my favorite. I don't know why.
Orcs. I fucking love orcs. So, yes, the green monsters, the green tide, the green skins.
The Hulks.
These orcs, they are in fact a race in 40k. The
Obviously.
orcs are as exactly what you expect them. They have archaic weapons, they're big boys, they have axes, and they have got big old teeth,
big axe
and they want to kill everything, and there are so many of them. The only reason they haven't taken over the entire galaxy is they can't stop murdering each other. Orcs are so cool. Orcs don't have philosophy. Orcs don't have existential crisis. What matters is who's the biggest orc. You listen to that guy because he's the biggest orc. He's the big orc. Big orc knows best.
Big orc
you win
energy.
The power of imagination. Of all the races I have battled throughout the galaxy, the orc is the hardest to comprehend.
Why?
They wage war with machines that should not work.
What do you mean should not
They're
work?
little for strategic gains and are just as likely to slaughter each other as the enemy. How does one battle an enemy that defies all logic? As an orc, you're enjoying life. You're enjoying the life you're given. Your whole life and job and purpose is
make
to
less
get
sense
up
in the
and
Tyranids?
beat each other to death because you can. The biggest orc is the man who understands everything. He is the boss. And orcs have this really weird, like, big, dumb, stereotype British accent.
Wait,
which is
really?
just hilarious to me. Those are orcs. You fight.
Are you strapped to a rocket?
Your whole purpose is to fight. You wage war because you want to wage war. You got your boss over there, and you better listen to the boss.
Because he's big.
If you don't listen to the boss will squish you and make you an example for the other orcs, and then you can't fight.
How to become big orc?
Dead. And orc dead can't fight because the orc dead. Orcs. They scrap together machines out of parts
somehow
that
work.
don't make any sense, and because they believe, they have the mental imagination that that machine will run, it'll run. If that machine's out of gas, you're driving that machine with
and you put water in it and you think it's going to work.
The biggest orc is behind the wheel, and you run out of gas, some orc behind you like, oh, Zog, we're out of gas. And the big orc is like, no, we're not. I filled the fucking gas tank up earlier. And all the other orcs are like, oh, yeah, you did do that. And then you turn the fucking mech back on, and it works again. Does it have gas?
No.
Probably not.
But
it works.
How?
The power of imagination. They paint things red because it makes them think they goes faster. They paint things purple because it's the sneakiest color. You want to know why? You ever seen a purple orc? Didn't fucking think so.
No.
Orcs are also like ancient as hell. They're back in the Eldari time frame.
Oh.
But back then they were called Krorks, and they were much larger and scarier and far more intelligent. Now they're just orcs, and they're big, dumb.
That's
and
all
smack
war
things,
done.
But they're pretty spooky. They're not very well armored, but they hit really hard.
Well,
and it's called the Green Tide because there are so many
And they
orcs.
just overtake
there are as many
everything.
Orcs as there are Tyranids. Maybe more. Who
What?
knows? But they keep on, murdering each other, so it's not too bad of an issue.
Oh, Tyranids versus orcs.
Entirely comic relief. Their stuff is slapped together. That makes no sense. Their vehicles don't work the way they're supposed to, but they work because they think it works, because they imagine that it works. orcs care only about who is the biggest orc, and they will follow the biggest orc. And then if they want to be the biggest orc, they'll challenge the biggest orc. And then
I don't know how you can challenge the biggest orc.
A wa is just war in orc. They murder everybody and everything in this giant tide of green orcs.
I don't think they discriminate. I think they just kill everything.
They don't care that they're hitting Eldar or the Imperium or Tau or anyone in between. They're just so they get to beat shit up. That's orcs. And on the tabletop, they are a total coin flip, and they're really fun. I have never met a salty orc player.
Oh, because they're here for the lulz? Oh my god, no wonder why people think I would like them.
Guy or that guy. Orc players have this kind of fun to them because when
you're here to have fun,
you are completely submitting yourself to RNG. So here's the thing.
Oh god.
Guardsmen, Imperial Guardsmen, when they shoot, they roll a dice, and on a 4 up, they'll hit their target. They have a 50% chance. Space Marines, pretty good. They hit on a 3 or higher.
Okay.
They're well trained. Adeptus Custodians, they hit on 2s because they're just super well trained.
Yeah.
Orcs, they hit on a 5 or higher. But if they roll a 6,
it's bad.
They get to make another shot with anything.
What do you mean anything?
From the dinkiest pistol to the biggest rocket launcher.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Half of their
that might be the one that I...
One of their
that would be
medics,
fun.
If you
I could see myself playing that one.
You fuck up your surgery and you just kill an orc. They're so wacky and silly. But the thing is if you roll well, you roll high, and you keep rolling high, you are going to crush.
But if you don't, there's just...
And if you
don't, well.
You lose. I mean, that's what you get when you play orcs. That's what happens when you play orc. It's a coin flip.
That's awesome.
Which is why you can't be a salty bitch when you play orcs, because
it's all out of your
control.
control.
Go your way.
Sometimes they will, but this is gonna be funny.
Dice game. But if you're gonna have fun, and you want to be stupid, and you want to be silly, you're gonna play some damn orcs. But on the opposite side of the fun part of this, let's talk about the Necrons.
The what? That looks kind of crazy.
The Necrons are spooky, scary skeletons and very grim dark again.
The month of Halloween is almost upon us.
They have a much more fleshed out lore than before. Back in the day, they were just undead Egyptian space terminators, and they still look that way, but now they actually have a story. So way back in the day, you had the Necron tier. Kind of see a theme here: Eldari, Eldar, Krork, Orc, Necron, and Necron tier. So the Necron tier were this race of generally kind of shitty people. Not because they were personally shitty, but because their lives were awful. They were
I think everyone in Warhammer has terrible lives.
Of like radiation and a terrible planet they lived on, and everything just really sucked. Being a Necron tier was just really depressing. They really were looking for immortality. They were extremely
Why would you want to live forever on a terrible planet?
They would eventually find the key to living forever and just stave off this horrible nature that they were thrust upon them, and therefore they could become the most dominant race in the galaxy. And they found this group. They're called the Old Ones. Imagine them kind of like the Forerunners in Halo.
I was literally thinking about that
in StarCraft, right?
These
StarCraft. Old Ones were these strong.
I played through Halo. That was also, I think that was on this channel actually.
And they, of course, knew the key to immortality. So the Necrons went to them and said, "Please, show us your ways." And the Old Ones said, "Piss off." Not really. They were a lot more humble about it. But they did not want to share their secret of immortality with the Necrons.
That's probably a good thing.
The Necrons, of course, took this very well and waged war with them. Kind of under this united banner. The Necron different dynasties didn't really like each other, but under this one man,
united
the
for
Silent
war.
King, he thought the best way to unite his race was to do this giant war with the Old Ones out of spite for them keeping the secret of immortality to them. This was known as the War in Heaven, and this is actually a multi-stage war, because during this War in Heaven, they discovered the Star Gods, a whole new race of people known as the Catan, or the Catan.
That's a weird way to spell that.
These Star Gods were also very much like Old Ones, almost omnipotent beings, and they too had the key
There's a lot of gods in Warhammer.
And so the Necrons went to them and said, "Hey, can you help us fight off the Old Ones? Can you help us kill these Old Ones, you, the Catan?" And the Catan said yes. And in fact, we can help provide you with the immortality you so desperately seek.
Why would they do that, though?
So the King of the Necrons decided to make a pact with the Catan to allow them to accept this generous gift of immortality upon them. But this, of course, had been a horrendous trap, and the Necrons
why.
were dragged in chains to this biotransference where their flesh was stripped from them, replaced with
one of those
nothing
deals.
but a metal hollow shell, as their souls were ripped from their body and fed to the Catan. And the Catan fattened up. They got chonk on the souls of the Necrons. As this was their plan all along, they consumed
So basically the Necrons were greedy, wanted immortality, and they got what they wished for.
Unwilling robotic slaves just to serve their will. And then with
How
the
to get an army, step one.
Necron army, they pointed their guns at the old ones, and the Catan continued their domination of the stars and their genocide, complete and full genocide of these old ones. The old ones did their best to stave it off. They even created other races, the Eldari and the Orcs, to try to fight off
so they're
the horrifying Necron army and the Catan above them. But there was absolutely no possible chance for them. And the old ones were absolutely extinguished
laser
across
cannon
the galaxy. Their entire race completely removed. Full-on 100% genocide. However, during all this,
Bricky just reminds you of like your favorite high school teacher. The way he explains stuff so good.
Started fighting each other for fun, for sport,
for
small differences, doesn't matter. The Catan, with these overpowered people, they're going to eventually hit each other at some point. And as they began just menially fighting each other, the Eldari and the Orcs actually started pushing on the Catan's borders a little bit, giving them a little bit of a run for their money. And as this continued, this is when the Silent King, who retained his consciousness, decided to lead the action and start a full-scale revolt against their Catan masters.
So now you're the leader.
And this revolt was bloody, as the entire Necron army was surged off to destroy these star gods. They were able to, just after suffering horrendous losses, were able to turn the tide of the war. And they took these Catan and they blasted them.
So anyway, I started blasting.
As the star gods are unkillable, they were able to break them into thousands of shards and entrap them in giant stasis vaults to now actually be slaves to the Necrons. And with the Necrons having the entirety of their old gods enslaved to them, they realized that soon their race was about to be attacked by the overcoming new races, the Eldari and the Krorks. And so what they did is they retreated into giant stasis tombs in order to preserve their energy and their strength for when one day they would be reawakened and they would be able to rule the galaxy that was rightfully theirs. And then some dingus Adeptus Mechanicus guy diddled with a green console, and now the Necrons are back. And they see all these primitive races on their lawns, and they think, get the fuck off of it. So the Necrons are back, super advanced, and they are here to reclaim the galaxy
like the Forerunners.
So rightfully believe is theirs. Now, at tabletop, they're a lot like that. Tons of undead Egyptian skeleton robots
for some reason.
that when they die, they just get right back up because they keep on reanimating. Hard to kill, tons of crazy stuff. You can use the Catan themselves as units to fight with.
Wow.
Pretty cool. The Necrons are one of the three major events in 40k. The Horus Heresy, the Fall of the Eldar, and the Awakening of the Necrons are all pretty substantial events. And the Necrons themselves are pretty dang cool as well. Here's a good quote from a wonderful
Lucky creatures.
Lucky creatures, as long last you have found the tranquility of death. I was like you once, clinging to life and blind to the truth. When I uncovered the truth, I too shuddered and paled with fear. Deep in these catacombs, I was remade. Ooh. Here, my brethren slumbered for eons while the living grew like weed. My Lord knew this day would come. He had plans for us all. We would purge this world once more. So come, poor
He wasn't kidding about them thinking
life.
that
we will
the world
grant you
is theirs, or everything is theirs.
Kronos will be a tomb world once more. Necrons are also pretty smug. Trazen the Infinite especially.
This is still your girl.
Little dickhead. But speaking of dickheads, last race. Let's talk the Tau.
The Tau?
The exact formation of the Tau Empire is not entirely understood.
I don't know what these
are
supposed to be.
A long time ago, many thousands of years ago, in the 40k world.
What is like?
Navigation vessels were going around
those
different areas.
So cool.
And they saw a primitive race, blue people smacking each other with sticks and stones. Thought, nah, dumb Xenos race who gives a shit, and they bailed. Then this giant
what
warp
is his
storm
legs?
occurred right in that major area, unable to be breached. Then, once that warp storm 6,000 years later subsided...
6,000 years?
Hello, those little sticks. Well, they decided to actually have no war of any kind and all just unite together under one flag of the Tau Empire. And now they have gigantic starships and Gundam robots and lasers.
Basically,
and
got left alone for a while.
And they're here to ruin your day for the greater good. That is generally the Tau Empire. They have this kind of feeling of this homogenous group,
but there's no good guys. Maybe the Tau's are good guys. I think people talked about
the greater
Tau.
good. The
That's what he said in part 1.
Their idea of the fundamental increase and help of all. In fact, they are most likely the most like the Covenant in Halo, where they have the overarching prophets, being the ethereals, who are actually kind of dicks and like to pull at strings a little bit, but then you have all these different races directly underneath them, and they all work together in this big group as this large, foreboding race that tries to spread their weirdly pseudo-religious influence across the galaxy. The alien is not intrinsically evil. Do not hate him. Pity him, his ignorance. Seek to understand his differences.
They left him for 6,000 years, and this is what happened.
Inadequacies. Only then will he accept his place in the greater good. That is generally the Tau. And if you're kind of wondering like what their mainly big shtick is, well, they're all about big robots and mechs. They have laser rifles and rail guns. And they got giant mechs with tons of missile pods and heavy rail rifles.
That's kind of crazy. Went from sticks to mechs.
Burst cannons and ion accelerators
because
and void
they
shields
didn't
and all this stuff.
go to war
and that
with each other.
Generally what the Tau's all about. But you're probably thinking, Bricky, this doesn't sound that
Warhammer.
evil.
Yeah.
This doesn't sound
What do they do?
Grim, dark Warhammer.
What do they do?
And you'd be right. The Tau Empire really don't have that much of a horrifying, grim, dark style.
Not really. They do something, though.
Much more younger, new age thing. In fact, they're probably a lot less evil and a lot even better than they are now back in the day because they liked having like that good guy faction. But a lot of us who really like the dark, depressing style of Warhammer didn't really like it that much. So
they did something.
The Tau get a lot of hate, and a
lot
of hate isn't necessarily unjustified. It's mainly from a tabletop perspective, but as you can see from all the visuals I've shown you recently, they don't really fit in the 40k universe very well. They lack that super dark, dramatic, kind of high gothic level the Imperium has.
They're just like white, modern,
kind of like grungy stuff that Chaos or
as opposed to like gothic.
And the Necrons and the Eldar have their own specific style as well. The Tau really do look like something out of Gundam. And while it isn't necessarily a bad thing, it does definitely not fit too well. There's that.
Is that where the legs are from?
From
Gundam?
In tabletop, Tau are horrible at melee combat, but exceptionally good
at range
combat. So they blast everyone from really, really far away, and they have a million rules to make it so that it's nearly impossible for you to get into melee combat. So it basically just forces you to bottleneck the game into one specific gameplay style, which is gun to gun. And if you're doing gun to gun, they're going to win every time because they're the Tau, and the Tau
so they're kind of
really
OP.
Good
they're like cheese. They're meta.
So it's one of those things that make the Tau generally rather hated, and a lot of different reasons for that, both from style and such. But this is actually one of the things I wanted to end this video with, is that the Tau, while they have their issues, you should not be discouraged from playing them. I'll make plenty of Tau weeaboo jokes. Of course I will, but it's all generally in good fun. Anyone who legitimately doesn't want you to play a faction is an idiot, and you shouldn't be giving them the time of day. You pick what you think is cool and what you like. In Warhammer, especially now, factions get better and they get worse.
I'll have to look at all of them. I don't know how the gameplay works.
You should only be playing what you think is cool. You like the look, you like the models. If you're talking tabletop, that is what you should be going for every time, is what you think is
I might play a Warhammer 40k
game
game at some point. I might stream it.
But the universe
look out for that.
of Warhammer has
also,
so
I'm
much
going to continue doing
going
Warhammer
for
videos.
Every
Let me know what you'd want
something
in the comment section, and
every
like ones that you agree with. I know the Emperor had text to speech device. That will happen as well.
The universe is vast and exciting, and while it is dark, depressing, and horrible, that is the damn charm. And out of everything I've told you in these two videos, is anything that you could take away is the reason why so many of us are so into this series and why we like it so much. Because with so much variety, such an expansive universe, and so much that can be done, you can find yourself having a pretty great time.
Do they ever like add new factions? Like some of the ads? It's very informative. I've learned so much. I hope there's a part 3, but there's not.
For my streams, you have my merchandise.
I don't know where to go next.
In which I
Please
was
help.
wearing all
I want more. I want to know more.
Underneath this because I had to wear this so it wasn't black or white for the green screen, which is a little unfortunate, but it's fine. If you'd like to see merch, it is in the description. Also, if you'd like to support me on my Patreon page at patreon.com/Bricky for more videos like this,
so cool.
Then that would also be wonderful. So Twitch, merch, Patreon, anything if you want to.
But yeah, no, I know there's this Warhammer games.
Appreciate it.
Let's got a sponsorship offer to do one of them.
I'm stoked you got all the way to the end of the video, and that is enough for me.
Yeah,
so,
I'm
going to have
covered
more
in sweat
content like
right
this
now.
out in the future. Thank you so much for sticking around this long and being with me.
Thank you for watching my video. I appreciate it. I really do.
Also,
I read all your comments, so leave them down below.
My favorite Warhammer quote: "He who scoffs at the power of the las gun has never ran through a field of 1,000 of them." Bye-bye.
That's a pretty good. Thanks for watching. And thank you for watching this video as well. I have a lot more Warhammer information to tell my friends that I was telling about Warhammer for the past week. I even told my girlfriend about Warhammer when we were literally getting dinner. Like, we literally had a dinner day, and I'm sitting there talking about Warhammer in the middle of the Cheesecake Factory. Oh, man. Warhammer 40k is nuts. I look forward to learning more about this, maybe in some figures at some point. I don't know. I've spent a lot of money this week because I just bought a house. So if you become a patron, I would greatly appreciate that as well. But the videos that I'm about to create, when I have my own place, my own office and everything, oh my god, it's going to be amazing. But like I said, if the Emperor had a text-to-speech device is something that a lot of people pointed out. People pointed out to me for years. It will happen at some point. Not sure when, but it will happen. I can promise you that. Might play Warhammer video game at some point. I'm playing to Resident Evil 4 right now for the very first time, the remake. And I let me know what the next video should be, whether it's Bricky, whether it's somebody else. I know Asartes is another thing people want. I don't know. Leave it down below in the comment section. You all made me laugh so much with your comments from the last one. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you're subscribed so you don't miss a future video. But until the next video, take care and cue the music.
We were